Welcome to Bookwood. I'm glad you chose to spend some time with me discussing our April reads. My reading was quite good. No new favorites, but also no deceptions. How was yours? I managed to pass my classes at the Orilium Academy. If you also participated in the Magical Readathon, how did you do? Until now, I've always started my wrap-ups by updating my reading journal. But I wonder, what part would you like to see first, the journal or the reviews? Setting up my stats pages is always a bit tricky. I want it to look themed and attractive, but I also need to leave the space for the graphics. I struggled somewhat with this one. I grabbed some stickers I've left over from my April bujo setup, cause I love them so much. I picked up 13 books and unfortunately DNF'd one. 6 were physical books, 2 ebooks, and those were good for 2062 pages. It is my smallest amount of pages so far in 2025. The 5 audiobooks were 76 hours of listening. That is the most hours in a month I have done this year. It feels strange, but one book was 32 hours and a half long. Of this book I owned one, 2 were included in my Kindle, and the audiobooks all came from Audible. I bought 2 and 3 were included. The last 4 books came from the library. All these books were novels. My top 3 genres are fantasy with 5 books, mystery with 3 books, contemporary with 2 books. I have read 12 different authors, of whom 5 were new to me. Here are the books that fitted a prompt of the 52 Book Club main and mini challenge. In April, I read 4 books in English and 9 in French. I also started 4 series, read 3 sequels and finished 2 series. 9 books, which leaves me with 4 standalones. In my second Orilium vlog, I didn't update the Dragon Rescue Tracker page, since I didn't have the graphics yet, and that's what I'm doing now. We not only saved all 6 dragons, we read up to 2 million extra pages to make sure we didn't leave a dragon in need behind. This quest was so much fun. During the closing sprints, we got the opportunity to bond with one of the dragons we saved. Even if choosing one was allowed, doing the quiz was more fun. I added a page for this in my journal. I was matched with the petal dragon. Perfect! As a Patreon member, we also got to do the self-care bingo. One must be in top condition to make it through the semester. I had 2 bingos and gained 6 guild reputation points. It is now time to update my yearly spreads. I've already taken note of some info of my character, but I still need to add in my new friend that I named Camellia. I got reminded of the Eldia adventure board and that I could keep the quest up to date, so I added in a place to track the quests. Adding in my path on the Eldia adventure board, I did read my book for this prompt. The prompt was read a book with the word river in the title, and so I did. So far, I fulfilled 27 prompts for the 52 book club reading challenge. That's more than half of them. Would you like a video about this with more precision on what books I read for what prompts? This month I can only add one new author to the ABC challenge. I noticed a mistake, and so I add in a little note to remind me that I switched the letters M and T. Two of the books I read can count towards the 25 in 25 bingo that Brie created at 4 pows and a book. That's one bingo already. I am also still on track with the books for the Les Étapes Indiennes readathon. I have had lots of fun trying to find books for this readathon, and I have been enjoying my reads for so far. I'm very happy that I discovered this readathon and that I decided to take part in it. Still ahead for the Fit Salon, so no book for this one this month. As we saw in my statistics, I have a lot of work on my series tracker, 4 series to add. This year I have already added 8 series to this tracker, which brings us to 28 series in total. I finished 6 series already this year. This means that I have 22 active series on this list. For now, it seems that my goal of having around 20 active series at the end of the year is still reachable. This month I didn't read the book Club Read. It's part of the Hunger Games universe and I haven't read any of the books in that world. I was afraid I would miss a lot of the basic info. I planned to replace it by the Guild Read, but that one was way too many pages to add to my TBR. To end, I paste in the covers of the books I read for my classes, just because it is so satisfying.
We have come to the review part of this wrap-up. Let's start with the books I have read for my Orilium classes. My character had to pass herbalism and beast mastery since she wants to work both with plants and with magical animals. For herbologists, she had to read 2 books. For alchemy, we needed a title in all capitals, and I have read La guerre, céleste, partie 2 by Anna Triss. This is the very last book in this series. In this world, we are following Panama, and we start when she is 6, and she becomes an orphan, and she will be admitted into this guild of assassins and be trained to become one. This first big part of the trilogy ends when she is 16 and her training is fulfilled and she becomes a real assassin. We will follow her through a lot of events during all the other books, which all lead up to a big war of which she is the center point. Why and how is very much part of the plot, so I will not tell you, especially because this French trilogy will be translated into English soon, and I recommend you very much to go and discover this world. If you want to have a preview, you can always read The Courtesan Queen that is already translated. I was quite happy with how the events turned in the last book. There is a closure for every character we will be following. And the only thing that I found a little bit sad is the epilogue that to me didn't have to be there. It closes off the storylines of many characters, tells what happens to them after the closure of this war, which is nice, but it felt a little bit unnecessary to me. For restoration, I had to read a book that is rated more than 4 stars somewhere, and I have selected for that Le Secret du Faucon 2, which is the second book of a series that I started in February. In the first one we meet Cyrielle, who is the daughter of the Faucon clan and who has been sent to grow up in a monastery and to become a nun after the death of her parents when her uncle took over the reign of their lands. In the start of the first book, the monastery where she lives is raided by some gangsters and completely destroyed. So she is sent back home for the time the repairs and the rebuilding to happen. She will discover a lot of secrets about her family, secrets that she's not so happy with, and this set off a whole adventure. In the second book, this adventure continues, and she is still looking for answers to many questions before she can really do something about the situation. I was very pleased with this book since it is a young adult fantasy with a romance in it, and I was afraid by the ending of the first book that we would go more into this romance, but no, we went into a lot of more action and in a lot of more political plot lines. And that was a surprise to me, and I loved that. I hope that I can finish or read the next book, because there is 5 of them right now, soon. For my second calling, I had to read for elemental studies, and we needed a book with fruit on the cover. I found out that acorns are a fruit, so I read Emily Wilde's map of the Otherlands, which on the French cover holds some acorns. This is the second book in the Emily Wilde series, so again it is more difficult to tell you much about it. But after the adventures of the first book, Emily has now decided to make a map of the Otherlands, the Fey lands, of where they are compared to the human world, and where the gates are, or the most known gates, since they tend to go and change places. She is taking the opportunity to go and look for a missing scientist that should be lost somewhere in these Fey lands. She has a little hidden agenda, of which I cannot tell you too much in case you haven't read the first book. And unfortunately for me, this book had some second book syndrome. It was quite like the first one in the way things unfold, and it didn't bring a lot of new elements to this book, but it made me very curious for the third one that is not available in French yet, so we will have to wait for a while before we can read that. For animal studies, I needed a book stolen from another TBR, and since I had some books I really wanted to read during this month, I have used a scroll of exchange, which permitted me to pick another book that is for the prompt of another class, and I picked the one for demonology, which is a book with a missing person, and for that I have read The Coral Bride by Roxanne Bouchard, which is the second book in the Inspector Morales trilogy, and I really liked this one. I listened to these mystery books, and I've all finished now, because I really love the Quebecian French accent, because this book is written in French and the author is from Quebec, but it has an English translation. And in these books, we are in Gaspésie, which is a very rural and very to the sea bound place, and we are in the midst of the fishing communities. And I find that this book has a calm into them that is just very appealing to me. The inspector holds his inquiries very calm. It's not like rushing sirens and off to see this or that. No, very quietly, very but very interesting also, because it is always more than just who did this and why. The why is always important. And so I was happy reading this one, and I really enjoyed it. In this book, Inspector Morales is looking, he starts off looking for a missing lady that turns out to be found drowned. And then he, of course, he is going to look for why in this book. In the background story of the characters, we find out that he is having to make the choice to divorce his wife that never followed him to Gaspésie. She is still in Montreal, and he discovers more about their relationship. He has a lot of talks with his son, who comes to visit, about relationships and his past, which was very interesting and very well done. And when he continues looking into the reason why this lady was killed, because it definitely, even if it was staged as a suicide, it was definitely not. And the two stories go touching each other before that we find the one who did this all. The third book I read for this calling was Professor Astronaute. It was again for alchemy, a title with all caps. This is a non-fiction in which we learn more about what it means to be an astronaut, all that you need to learn to become one, the many years of training it takes, and how it feels to visit space. This is all done through the vision of Thomas Pesquet, who is a French astronaut who went into space twice. I thought this book was very interesting. I was a little bit disappointed that this book wasn't a memoir from Thomas Pesquet himself. The fourth book I read for this calling was for restoration, and we needed again a book with a more than 4 stars rating. I had planned a book for that if you have watched my bullet journal setup, but this book never came in from the library, so I replaced it by The Teacher by Freida McFadden. On Goodreads it's 3.91, but on a French site that is similar, Babelio, this is a 4-star read. So I chose to read this one, and I was able to do it as a buddy read. I was very intrigued as soon as I have read the prologue, since it is a snapshot of almost the end of the story, and it keeps you guessing the whole book of who are the persons that are staged in this prologue. In this book we meet Bennett, Nate and Eve, who are both teachers. He teaches English, she teaches mathematics in high school. And we will meet them on the first day of the school year, when they are going back to school. And in both their classes there is Addie or Adeline, who is a girl that has caused some problems last school year, and a teacher had to resign because of her, even if they both keep telling that the rumors about their relationship are false. Eve immediately feels very suspicious of this girl, whilst Nate tries to be very friendly and gets way too close to her. It is very difficult to tell you how this evolves, because it is a quite complicated intrigue that is easily spoiled, but it was a thriller that really kept me reading a lot of more time than I could spend on it. So I think it is worth the read. The last book I have read for my callings was Follower, and I needed a book with a musical term in the title, and for that I took Cocaine Blues by Kerry Greenwood, because in French the title is Cocaine et Tralala, and Tralala is linked to songs and childish songs in French. For those who don't know this series, it is the one that series Miss Fisher is based on. It is a lady detective in the 1920s, and it is set in Melbourne. I got to this series by watching it first, and I really loved Freida Fisher, who is the main character. And she is a lady that is really independent, full of resources, and that tries to take calculated risks to solve mysteries. I enjoyed reading this book, even if I found it less atmospheric than the series is. This will not be a series that I will be focalizing on in reading, But if I need a mystery, if I want to read something quite cozy and quick, then I will certainly turn to this series. Besides these books, I have read 3 other books for Orilium this month. For the Orilium adventure, I needed a book with the word river in the title, and I have read A River Enchanted, which is the first book in the Elements of Cadence duology. It was a very nice book to read. I enjoyed it very much. I liked the very Irish turn it took, and I am most certainly trying to read as soon as possible the second book in this duology. We meet, and there I go again with his name. We meet a young man that left this island to become a bard. For that he had to go study on the mainland. And in the 10 years that he has been studying, he has never gone back home. But now he has received a letter from the king, the laird, to ask him to come home because they need his help. So he goes. Arriving, he soon comprehends that this letter didn't came from the laird, but from his daughter, who is his heir, and with whom as a kid he has always had a love-hate relationship. Some smaller girls are disappearing on the island, and the inhabitants think this is the work of the fairies. So she needs this bard to help to consult them to see where these girls are and if they are still alive. We will be following the quest of our bard to seek out the truth, and we will also be following the more secular investigation by the guards. I think magic and reality were very nicely melted in this book, and it really made me feel like I am wandering some wild, beautiful land. I have read 2 books for Quest of the Adventure Board. The first one was Le Murmure de Acapic, which is the 3rd book in the Inspector Morales trilogy, in which he will be investigating during his free time a drug trafficking case, and in the meanwhile Simone, who we met in the 2nd book, is on another boat investigating having a look on the seal hunt that is now in season. She will soon find out that this boat has more secrets to hide than this hunt. We will follow both their investigations until they collide, and I was very sad with the ending, but it was a realistic one. The last book I read for Orilium is The Bridge Kingdom, the first book in this series. And I am not sure that it is something for me. This is a young adult romantasy. If I have understood it well, it is a trilogy of duologies, and in each duology we will follow another couple. In this first one we meet Lara, who is from another country than the Bridge Kingdom, and she has been brought up to be a spy and an assassin, so they can infiltrate the Bridge Kingdom, kill the king and take over this land, since the land where she is living is quite a desert, and she needs to help her country taking over the Bridge Kingdom so they have access to more affordable food. We will meet her right before she is sent into marriage with this king, and in his first book we will follow how they get to know each other, and how Lara tries to discover all the secrets of the land, and how she slowly becomes torn between the love she starts to feel for Aaron the king and the loyalty to her country. The twists in the end I did not saw coming, so that was a good point. I think I am just a little bit too old for this type of book. I will still read the second trilogy in this book because I want to know how the story ends, but I'm not sure I will be reading the other ones. This month I read 3 other books, or mainly 2. For Les Étapes Indiennes, I started to read The Namesake, but I DNF'd this book quite early at page 46. I thought the summary was interesting. The premise of this book is to explore how people from India in this case, but in immigration settings in general, balance between the culture they grew up in and that they know, and the culture of the country they end up in. But the book felt so slow, so heavy, and it didn't grip me at all. And since it's a very large book, I didn't want to end up in a reading slump. So I replaced it by The 3 Mistakes of My Life by Chetan Bhagat, who is also a contemporary Indian novel. And in this book, we explore again Ahmedabad. And as I have told you before, in January, I think, I'm very interested in the city and its surroundings since my best friend lives there. And we are in the years 2000, the exact year I don't know. And we will meet a man that is telling why he has tried to put an end to his days. Luckily, he didn't succeed in that. And we will see how he starts his business and how out of that he encounters a lot of difficulties that will lead to the fact that he loses the love of his life, he loses his best friend. And I thought this book was way more readable. It was more gripping. It made me want to go on, even if all the events in it are not that extraordinary. It is the way that it is told that made me stay in this book. I learned a lot about Indian culture nowadays, how they balance between Hindu traditional life and modern life or Western life. It was interesting. We see how they handle trade, how they handle love, how they handle careers. That was and it was all done in a very human way. But the last book I want to talk to you about is my reread project book, and maybe you followed up and I didn't read the last book in the His Dark Materials series. I still didn't. I picked up the first book that I wanted to read for the Avalon cycle by Marion Zimmer Bradley and Danielle L. Paxson, and that is The Ancestors of Avalon. In the edition or in the publishing order, this is the last book, but in the chronological order, this is the first. So there is the question if The Fall of Atlantis by Marion Zimmer Bradley herself, that came out way before the Avalon cycle, is the first book or not, and after reading this one, it is certainly a book I want to get to at some point. In this book, we will be following Tiriki and her husband. They are both priests in the Atlantic society, and a part of the isles that make up Atlantis have already sunken, and now they know that the others will disappear too. And we meet them when they are preparing to leave these islands, because they want as many people as possible to survive and to spread their culture in a new homeland. At the moment they are leaving, Tiriki and her husband got separated, and we will mainly follow Tiriki, how she and the people on the boat she's on survive the trip to a new ground that will turn out to be nowadays UK. And they end up following a river into a swamp area. And in this area they will be met and greeted and welcomed by the local Celtic people who have received message by their priests and priestesses that the Atlantic people will arrive and that they have a role to play. They are shown to the Tor, which is a very magical place, a magical knot, and we will follow how over a lot of years they integrate, they learn how to survive, they adapt, and they create a new society together with the Celtic people who were already living there. We will, per moment, also follow her husband, and I cannot remember his name at this point. Most of the names are quite complicated. And his boat arrives into an area that has already been visited by the Atlantic Society, where they trade and where the sport has been developed in their ways. And they will continue developing their society there. And we will see how slowly they try to enforce their way of living and their religion onto the Celtic people living there. They will venture into the plains to try to build a stone circle that is now known as Stonehenge, quite even enslaving the people without really knowing them to know. So they are really manipulating the Celtic people. At some point they will learn that there is another Celtic society that met Atlantics and they merged together. So the husband of Tiriki will say, oh, well, maybe my wife is there, and they will go to encounter this society. And the prince he is with, Tahajan, his name I remember though, goes towards Tiriki explaining that they have to come and work for him, work on his project to submit these people. And she doesn't want to do this, so she said, I will be coming in a few ways. I cannot leave the people I met like this and leave them in the in some kind of a mess, but I will come. And of course both know that this is the start of a war between these two Atlantic societies. This war is quite short, and this is a magical war that is quite short, that Tiriki and her kin will win. And after that, since the stone circle has exploded, they travel back to bid rescue to the ones who survived. And this is where this part of the story ends. So normally in the next book we will jump a little bit in time and see how this evolved.